Vodafone presents the pre-match.
That's right, welcome back ladies and gentlemen to the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice as we have plenty more games going on here in bracket number 3. I am joined by Todd, DeMuslim and Mr. In Control. Guys, we had a pretty cool series just before, a little bit all over the place, that's fine. But now we're going to be moving on into another match, which will be PartinG going up against Reynor, which I think for a lot of people out there, Jeff, I'm going to start with you, is a pretty exciting fixture.
Yeah, I think it even goes beyond this tournament. I think Reynor has a lot of eyes on him for the entirety of 2019, but with IEM Katowice being as big as it is, it starts here, right? Like if you bomb out of Katowice, not to throw him too far under the bus, but for like Showtime, that's going to be kind of the grill on his back, right? Like people are going to be like, yeah, you had kind of a bad showing at Katowice. For Reynor, what kind of year are we going to have? Well, if he makes it out of these groups, that's the beginning of that narrative. It's a good one.
He set the tone, I think, with the last WCS stop, of course. I think he got second place there, right? And that was truly the first one that he could fully embrace and try and kind of start playing at the proper level here, Ben. So I think, you know, not only does a lot of the community have high hopes for Reynor, but I imagine you probably do too.
I mean, I don't think anybody's really going to forget that game when he was 3-2 up against Cyril in the final. Yeah. And that could have changed a lot of history for that year. That would have been the first time that Cyril lost on LAN in like since March.
Yes.
He would have also, like Reynor would have actually made it to BlizzCon through winning that WCS 2. So a lot of things could have changed there. And going up against PartinG, this is kind of like old school versus absolute new school. Because Reynor, yeah, he's fire, man.
It feels like sky's the limit potential-wise for him, but we just don't know when he's going to reach his full potential. You know, for so many years, we had like prospects. I remember we hyped Hero Marine as like one of the guys that, you know, was going to be at the top for such a long time because he was so young. Even though, you know, it took years and we still like consider him as being like one of the really young guys. But for Reynor, he's still so young. He still has so much room to grow more. And he's already posted some incredible results. Taking second in the WCS event is just insane at this age. So maybe this is the year that, you know, he makes the global finals and, you know, starts posting even crazier results than he had in that WCS event.
PartinG just mentioned in his interview that Reynor's going to have to look out and kind of see what he's going to show him what he's got a bit effectively. And I think he does have to be careful of someone like PartinG, right? Because he's going to pull no punches. He's just going to go out there and put it all on.
He's just always a scary opponent. Who were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about this in relation to Mana, kind of in the first series of the beginning of yesterday, and it ended up being true. Mana was able to defeat Fantasy in that way. And it's the same thing with PartinG, if not even scarier. Mana has very good control. PartinG is like the good control. You could see the nerves a little bit in that match against True, that's kind of what True does to you, but with the nerves a little bit out of the way and Reynor being a little bit more of a traditional Zerg that's just very good with the mechanics, I think PartinG's going to be more comfortable, and he's way more scary when he's comfortable.
All right, gentlemen. Well, we do have other games going on here whilst we're getting this game going. We have Crow versus Minato, Su versus Kelazor, Gumiho versus Hurricane. These gentlemen are going to be checking in on those later on down the line. For now, I'm going to be checking in once again with Maynard. Aww. What a nice guy. Thank you very much. It's not true, but how are you doing, Maynard?
No, actually, I'm fine. No, okay. I was going to say, no one needs to see me. It's fine. We'll just get that message off the screen, as true as it is. We're looking at New Repugnancy here, which is going to be one of the battlefields coming up. The main thing you want to talk about here is that there's the main, over there as well. But the coolest thing for Zerg on this map for me is that there is a lot of space here in the middle where there's basically a lot easier of an option for Zerg to be able to get those surrounds, those flanks. You break down these rocks, you can actually do quite a bit of damage to your Protoss opponent. This is the map, guys, and that's basically it. I did it.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Brilliant. I didn't expect it to end so abruptly, but it ended so abruptly.
It is a map.
It is a
map.
map.
And there is the mains, yes.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go that way. Big, brought it down. Save me.
What's up? That was, I mean, honestly, this is what I love about StarCraft. There's so much depth to this game. I feel like I learn something new every day.
So much depth.
You know, I was still a little bit unfamiliar with the map, but now I know it has a lot of space in the middle. It makes me happy, you know. I'm a lot more excited to see this map more often in the rest of the tournament. The only thing I was really missing were the attack paths, you know, which
please. We don't
would they come in from, but okay. I guess we're just going to figure out in-game.
Bringing it, let's draw it in, all right? It's a cool match. Reynor versus PartinG. Guys, you got to be hyped.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I mean, Reynor, he had a really good series before. PartinG, I think, had his warm-up series of the day, is kind of what that interview told me. He was a little bit upset with some of his decision-making early on in the series, but he tied it together, and he's got a big test in front of him. I think Reynor goes in as the favorite. His results last year were spectacular, so this is just awesome. Good fun.
do hope we see more of Reynor than he showed in that first series against Real, though. I know you guys didn't see all of it, but Pig, you went through the highlights, but it was a lot of Nidus networks, and whether it's of 20, 30, or 40 drones, I don't care that much. Obviously, they're all different, and on certain moment, a certain Nidus is the right one to use.
Yeah.
But I want to see a little more, man. I want to see some Hydras, some Banes, maybe some Vipers or Infestors even down the road, but I would be sad if we only see Nidus networks in this best of 3.
Sure. All right, well, I'm ready for it. Definitely excited for this one. PartinG versus Reynor. Let's get it going.
All right. It's going to be a good one over here. And as you said, Roddy, you want to see a bit more variety. I just want to see these drawn-out games. Why? Because it's in those relaxed, sort of reflexive games where Reynor's Zerglings get to shine. It's where he's doing those constant run-bys, small squads poking around, picking up bits of information. And that's why it's so tough to play against him as a Protoss player. You've always got to have the door locked tight. It's very hard to hide any information from this young Zerg.
Yep, but the longer the game goes, the more that PartinG is going to have the room to showcase some of his awesome moves as well. We know that he's capable of a lot of cool stuff. Storm drops against Zerg, sure, with PartinG it's possible. Disruptor drops, absolutely. PartinG can truly do it all. Can even play some fun air styles as well. That's why I would just love to see some longer games where both players can truly showcase what they're made of, because they're both excellent. I mean, Reynor is one of my absolute favorite players in the world. I think he recently partnered up with the Red Bull as well, the Italian side of it, so that's really cool. It's awesome to see Reynor not just joining a new team, Gamers of Origin, but now getting some personal sponsors as well. And I mean, if one kid deserves it, it's got to be that cutie.
So much talent down here in the bottom left-hand side of New Repugnancy. The Blue Zerg player, he is Reynor. Chatting to him just before in the break room, he had a big smile on his face after his previous series.
He always does,
very confident.
Come on, Reynor can be 07 and he will still have a big smile on his face. That kid is not capable of being angry. On the right top side of this beautiful map with a lot of space in the middle, by the way, we're looking in the main base of our favorite Protoss player out there. It is PartinG.
And, you know, PartinG, I definitely think was a little bit shaken by that first series. I think as long as he just resets his mindset, things like, hey, let's not scout with a probe, you can do that against Reynor. You can't pull that off against True. That is why that series started off so rough for the Red Protoss player. He, I feel like he didn't really play to his opponent, and he was often kind of going down a route with his build and then saying, wait, I have no idea what my opponent's trying to do. It's something weird, and he started second-guessing himself. I think here against Reynor, he's going to be able to actually read into his scouting information a little bit more. That's what we wanted to see, Kev. Oh, this is the nasty cannon rush where you go for the Sorka Shield battery follow-up. You can have a much faster cyber core. There will be a single gas already mining.
That's a late gas, by the way, for Reynor. A 120 gas, if you compare it to some of the other ZVPs we've seen, where they take it 1 minute sharp, or 103, 105.
He's sending a drone down, though. And that pylon, is he going to be going for the full wall? If the drone's on top of him, the drone's on top of him, get that pylon. No, he can't get the wall off.
He had no money, or?
Yeah, I mean, he chose not
technically,
to go
I feel like he had time to do it. He can...
Yeah, he can still get it. He missed it. That's a big micro mistake from PartinG, I think.
Now it's going to be very hard to ever get that up because the drone is going to be on patrol. I feel like he had time there. He must have been short on money, or he must have misclicked, because I really felt there was enough space between the probe and the drone to get another pylon up there.
Yeah, I think so. And it's kind of out of time now. You know, Lings are on the way. That's usually a delayed cannon rush, but now that's just an awkward opening, having gone for the cyber core and the forge. I mean, he didn't even have a second probe on the map, did he? I don't think he'd sent one even out. So he was really going for the make it look like a normal game. Your probe comes in, checks the main base, goes down to the natural. But Reynor, they're just blocking with a single drone, and PartinG missing an opportunity, already starting off this game behind.
It's a pretty big deal. I mean, this is one of those things where you look at the numbers, you're like, that wasn't that bad for PartinG, right? But everything is delayed, guys, and above all, the Nexus is delayed. That was a post 2-minute Nexus. That means it's really going to take a very long time before this Protoss economy truly goes up and running. I don't know what his follow-up is going to be, but if you go for a Stargate now, those Oracles are going to arrive like 30, 40 seconds later than they would normally arrive. This is really quite uncomfortable. So that's not what he's going to do. He's going to go for the Twilight Console, could obviously be an Archon drop follow-up, but even that is going to hit so much later, which means you're not going to fly into 3 or 4 queens, but there's probably going to be 6 or 7 queens out there, and Reynor can just build drones forever.
Nice. Does actually get one worker kill, gets the Adept out for now. It's a very slow Zergling speed for Reynor. PartinG doesn't necessarily know that, though. So his Adept is going to head home. He's going to go into the Twilight and the Robo. Looking like potential Archon drop is the follow-up. Reynor going for an interesting third base. Do you think this is just because it's not as much of a choked up area in front of it?
Yeah, I see some Zergs take this one. I really think they haven't universally agreed upon whether you should take the one above your natural or if you can take the one on the right side of your main. In this case, if you spawn on the left bottom side. I don't mind either. The only thing that becomes interesting now is where does Reynor take his fort? Because now you could technically say that he should take the fort close towards his third base, right?
Down on the low ground in the middle of the map, yeah.
But that's normally a base you take a little bit later. Like, I would still prefer to take my fort than above the natural, even though you spread yourself out a little bit more. I just think in general that's a little bit more comfortable because certain sentry attacks through the middle, I know Maynard said there's a lot of space. There is, but there is also a lot of rocks and it's really hard to pick off all those rocks. So I don't know if that's really where you want to take your fort base.
Ooh, the Adept and the Stalker did a little bit of a shuffle there, interestingly. And those Zerglings, they're just waiting. If those units move out of the wall, they will jump in there. The Adept,
he's just scouting. Because, like, for us, we know that there is nothing happening, but in PartinG's mind, he could still get Baneling busted at this point, and it's impossible for him to scout because he didn't open up with a Stargate. So every now and then, sending out that shade just to see if there are some Banelings morphing or not. I mean, you have nothing else to do, you may as well.
The DT Shrine is now almost ready. Warp Prism heading out across the map, going to begin this pressure. Reynor building a bunch of Roaches and Zerglings here, and obviously the threat of the counterattack is very real. There's already detection out, and I mean, these DTs aren't really going to find any damage. The question is, can PartinG get home and defend the counterattack? Because just 42 workers for Reynor, so many Lings out. If PartinG moves out to take a third behind this, he's just dead.
Well, PartinG has no shield batteries either in his naturals. I think PartinG is going to be in trouble regardless. I don't think he should rely on this Prism and these DTs to do damage. It's bad, by the way, they're still Dark Templars, because that means that if Reynor does commit to an attack now, I'm actually shocked to see Reynor go drones. Pick, I was with you. I was really feeling that Reynor was never going to stop building units, and he was going to go for the aggression.
Yeah.
Because why is he building
such a low economy? I'm with you on that one, Kev. It's a little bit odd to see this. That Archon barely surviving. I think he is still going to commit to the attack. I mean, 15 more times. Okay, he's deciding he doesn't want to break the wall. He's saying, look, one way I could throw this game is if you don't move out to take a third. He was expecting PartinG to move out to take the third. And I think in Reynor's mind, he doesn't actually realize just how far behind PartinG was from the opening. He was saying there should be a third base down by now. That because that wasn't going down, he kind of backed out, changed his path. He's going to go for the cancel, but he will not be able to get that with those Zerglings.
I think he will, actually. He is going to be able to get the cancel there. Was close, very, very close, but the Zealots, obviously slow Zealots, it takes a little while. I'm shocked to see Reynor make that many units on 42 drones, but I think you hit the nail on the head there. Reynor was expecting an all-in. He's like, okay, I think I have a good start. I just want to make sure I don't die to a two-base all-in. And so he's like, wait a minute, nothing's happening. I think that's a small misread by Reynor. You know, obviously it's okay for us to be a little critical overall. Massive fans of Reynor. But Reynor could have made those Roaches of at least 50 or even 55 drones. And that really does snowball a lot through the next few minutes in that Zerg economy. So Reynor threw away a minor lead, but he's still in an okay position.
Yeah, that is one of the important skills in StarCraft, is kind of having a good gauge of not just what you can do in a normal game, but if you're a bit ahead, how much further can you push your greed? How much more can you get away with to really push your advantages? And that's something which definitely didn't quite happen in terms of the economy for Reynor. Reynor's still got a monstrous army out, lots of Roaches, Ravagers, Zerglings, more Roaches on the way as well. So I do get the feeling that Reynor's still got this idea of let's bust the third base, let's just go in. He's mixing in drones, mixing in Roaches and Ravagers. It is odd to see this mixing once again. Half Roaches, half drones. Really either respecting the fact that PartinG can be aggressive or thinking about doing his own pressure, but it's not decisive. It's not what we're used to seeing from Reynor. We're used to seeing him push the economy or push the army, not both.
And since he still doesn't have a fort hatchery either, I'm actually starting to dislike this more and more for Reynor, man. Like, yeah, he's up 30 army supply, but what does that really mean when it's pure Roach and you're going up against Sentries and Immortals? Now Reynor is going up to 4 bases, but we're almost 8 minutes into this game.
Yeah.
Wings of Liberty or Heart of the Swarm, this would be really good, but in Legacy, we're used to faster bases than this. I do think PartinG should still be a little bit careful, because you are down in army supply quite a bit, and the Immortal count is not that high.
Oh, up on the top, we've got Roaches coming in for the multi-prong attack. Reynor going to go towards that mineral line. Already a DT starting to dish out some damage. And down at the ramp, a few sentries left behind, but they are getting exposed. A couple more force fields being forced out. 2 sentries have already fallen, and we are going to see Reynor just posturing. A couple of Biles just zoning out the chase.
Beautiful
Reynor.
army movement there, though, by Reynor. Like, to split off the right amount of roaches, where PartinG is like, well, okay, that single cannon and a single DT is not going to cut it. Then PartinG actually sent a few too many units to the north side, and that's when Reynor said, like, hey, all you left behind is an Immortal and a couple sentries, but I've got Ravages. I can deal with these force fields, and that was a very nice trade for Reynor.
You've almost got to start worrying here as PartinG, thinking there's got to be mutas or swarm hosts soon. You've got to be thinking, like, he's got so many roaches, but he's not trying to break me. What's going on in this game? The hallucinations, though, seeing that there aren't that many gases, taking the layers, just finishing. Oh, that's a lot of roaches. You've got to be really careful here as PartinG. Where is that warp prism?
I think the only reason why PartinG is even here is exactly because of what you just said. PartinG is like, I know something else is happening, because nobody would ever make this many roaches stay on roaches for this long. Well, Reynor is going to do that. He's going to dive on top of this Nexus as well and easily pick it up. He could even snipe a Dark Templar or 2 there in the mix as well. And he's got Burrow, and I don't think we have a whole lot of observers out on the map.
There we go. The Warp Prism is doing some counter-harassment. He wants to keep tabs on Reynor's economy, trying to kill a few workers there. The Roach Ravage is starting to dive in. The Probe Pull is good. Nice Probe Block from PartinG. A Force Field comes down as well. Fantastic defense of the Natural, but a few Roaches of Reynor slip in behind the Natural Mineral line. They're going to snipe probes, and the third base goes down again.
Do you see that PartinG just canceled his +2? I think he was convinced that his Forge was going to die, and he's like, okay, I want to get that money elsewhere, but I think he's already regretting it, because, you know, Reynor, okay, Reynor's still maxed out, but Reynor is also dealing with that Prism a little bit. Dark Templars are going to take care of these roaches, and +2 would have actually been one of those saving graces.
It would have been
Immortal Archon with +2 against just Roach. There's a good chance that he would have been able to take some fights a lot better in the near future.
Roach. That Burrowed Roach blocking the Nexus. Adding so much frustration here is Reynor, and PartinG here. I mean, he's got a good army for taking out roaches, but we've got more than 10 roaches for every single Immortal. The numbers are just insane here. Reynor's force is huge. The force fields are being worn down, and as they run out, they are a finite resource. Yes, they'll recharge over time, but he needs a lot more time, and the Hydralisk transition is on the way. That +2 upgrade really missing here, as you pointed out, Kevin.
Yeah, that's something that really could have came in ultra handy. I mean, there's still a lot of force fields available. Well, actually, maybe not that many. There's still a lot of sentries out there, but there really aren't that many force fields available anymore. But after this, Reynor is slowly but steady trying to get quite a few Hydras out as well. And obviously, Hydras are going to do incredibly well against his army of Immortal Sentry, especially when the Protoss upgrades are in that
The
great.
third base only just started as well. I mean, the economy is just crazy right now, and immediately it gets killed. No cancel, and PartinG is just getting pulled left, right, and center. He's getting stretched to his limits here. Immortals going down in these small skirmishes, and this is what you do with this sort of Roach army. You just pull the Protoss apart, and you start finding those exposed units. The Warp Prism here has done a good job of saving them, but even a single Roach in the back of the Natural picking off those units.
Yep, a couple of Corrosive Bows connecting with Immortals and Sentries as well, and PartinG really doesn't have that much left to work with anymore. Losing that Nexus again, that's going to be a GG is called. Reynor, the young Italian, will take the 1-0 lead.
Blocks the cannon rush at the start, gains a small advantage, and controls the pace from there. Really not too hard of a test for the young Italian. But PartinG starting off today on a shaky ground in the first series, and now here again. You know, having that cannon rush blocked so easily, he had a lot of time, as you mentioned, to get the cannon rush up. Even when he placed the first 2 pylons, his probe was on the outside of the cage. You're trying to create a cage for you to have the probe inside, gets you time to get the cannon up, and then you can build a gateway on the front and continue your Stalker's Shield Battery push. It's all about getting that up. The whole point is you've created surprise, but he gave Reynor too much time to deal with it. And PartinG, you can see he's a little bit frustrated. He was shaking his head there. That's not how he wanted that early game to go.
I'm super confused about what happened in that first 2 minutes of that game, because if I think back of the cannon rush that PartinG did in the GSL, it actually blew my mind how quickly he threw down the double pylon that protected his cannon on the high ground, and that eventually allowed him to win a pretty damn important PvP. But he did that so laser fast, compared to this scenario where he had what felt like all the time in the world, and somehow it just didn't work out, it messed up. And once again, it's hard to see in numbers how much it really impacts the Protoss build order. But I'll guarantee you guys that is a horrible way to start. Your Nexus is like almost a full minute later than what it's supposed to be. Suddenly you have a Forge very early on that's completely useless, unless you start getting it for upgrades very quickly. But you know, for upgrades to be worth it, you need to have units that can actually have an impact on the game. And I actually think that Reynor has kind of made things a little bit better for PartinG than it should have been by making so many roaches in certain moments where it didn't make too much sense. But maybe Reynor is just like, well, I know that this game is going well for me. I'm going to be as safe as I can possibly can. As long as I don't die to anything silly, I know this is my game to lose. And in the end, he still won it convincingly.
Absolutely. Not a moment of doubt for the young Zerg player, hailing from Italy and so far playing exceptionally well in this tournament. In the top left of Kairos Junction, here's Reynor.
Yeah, always nice to start your Intel Extreme Masters run, 3-1 against very good Protoss players. I mean, Will is a top 8 WCS Winter player, and this man, of course, has been making a lot of noise. He's been qualified for the GSL as well. On the right bottom side, our Korean Protoss, it is PartinG.
He's going with the gas first, so looks like he is going to be going for the no scout expand build. Really smooth timing on your tech. Something which will get you punished when you're playing True and he's 12 pulling and you don't see it till the Lings are at your base. Against Reynor, pretty reliable that he's going to go for the hatchery first. So I like to see PartinG pulling this build order out. Seems like he's got his PVZ playbook ready and no doubt going to be using a few repeat openings.
That gas is almost 20 seconds faster than it was in the previous game. If you take a gas this quick as a Zerg, this doesn't necessarily mean that Reynor's gonna all-in, of course, because it is still a hatchery first opening. But a 1 or 2 gas can mean multiple things. It could mean a +1 Ling style, but it could also mean a very quick lair. It could also mean a Ling flood or a Ling roach rush. All of these things are absolutely possible, because even though this is a macro-oriented map and we often see awesome long games on this map, when it comes from natural to natural, it really doesn't take that long for units to show up on the other side of the map.
And if you think about the way a lot of Protoss players often opening up with just 2 gateway units while they're rushing up the tech tree, if you finish your Ling speed about 20 seconds earlier than they're expecting...
Did you see that?
Just getting it positioned just right, yeah. Bit of an Overlord dance. But as I was saying, so the Zergling speed, if that finishes 20 seconds early, sometimes you catch PartinG's first Adept not quite going home on time. He says, I've got another 10-15 seconds till Ling speed finishes. Suddenly is surrounded. You lose one of your 2 gateway units. Suddenly, 10, 12, 14 Zerglings can break your wall, or at least force extra buildings, delay your entire build order, and that starts things off in a very hard way for the Protoss. That being said, though, it's going to be the Sentry Stalker opening, I believe, here for PartinG. A very fast Sentry to start things off. He's going to have 100% scouting with an early hallucination.
Yep, and this Overlord is obviously going to spot as well that it is a Sentry first opening for PartinG. So Reynor knows that he also doesn't even need the Ling speed to deal with the first or second Adept. The funny thing is that Reynor mined over 100 gas very quickly.
Yep.
And he didn't get Zergling speed yet. Now, that could be just because he wants to go up to 3 bases as quickly as possible. Whoa, what's that?
Overlord speed, yeah, okay, interesting. Could just be for scouting here. He does know this Overlord's going to get annihilated. You see how the Stalkers come out, the hallucination energy in just about 2 seconds.
1. But actually, that's going to...
I guess that provides high ground vision.
If you have 2 units shooting at it, it's not going to take that long. I'm a little bit worried about this Phoenix not having enough time, but maybe we'll have a little bit of time to get a good look into the main base and into the natural as well. Reynor is not aware of the robotics facility, correct? Because that's deep into the main base?
He doesn't, but this is the most common tech off this opening. If someone opens up with such a fast Sentry and a Stalker, you are kind of expecting this in the current meta. So I wouldn't be surprised if Reynor has an idea that's happening. Nice Queen positioning. That Phoenix, it sees a main base. It's okay. It is going to get down and see a good amount of drones on the natural.
But would you like Overlord speed as an opening against a Robo opening?
I mean, Overlord speed is always such a big investment early, right? Yeah. It's good because you see everything and this forces PartinG to be very flexible. PartinG here, he's going to spot the Overlord speed and he's already putting down, oh my gosh, that's a 5th gateway.
Yep, and PartinG brings the Prism back as well. So this could be just pure Zealot Immortal?
No, it'll be Stalker, Sentry, Immortal, Adept. Basically just your classic 6 gate. Yeah, so Stalkers, all the basic units. Lots of Zealots will be added in to deal with Zerglings, more Stalkers if it's more Roaches on the part of Reynor. Reynor spotting this though, already has a Spine Crawler down. He can go into Roaches. I mean, if PartinG just commits to this, yeah, it's a sharp timing attack. Overlord speed was an investment, but look at Reynor. He is respecting this so much. He's not building a single more worker. He says 12 Roaches, a Spine. I mean, he's got pretty much the perfect response.
Yeah,
the Overlord speed was perfect against this.
The funny thing is that Reynor doesn't even have Zergling speed yet, right? Like, he just completely skipped that, so it's just going to be Roaches and nothing but Roaches. I mean, sentries can still mess with this quite a bit. Star Prism is rallied. The War Prism will save it, though. Now, once again, guys, there is no Twilight Cancel here, so it's really important that PartinG keeps all of these gateway units alive.
One sentry already went down. It was a nice focus fire, but about 6 roaches get shut down in return. A lot of these roaches popping on the third base. Reynor getting those units separated. Losing the third base is not the end of the world. It really doesn't matter in the short term by any means, but it's about stabilizing.
What if PartinG just goes home now? Like, what if he does
There's definitely a transition point off this for sure.
Yeah.
You can do that.
With this damage, I think it's okay.
I think it's not a bad call at all. You've got to warp in more units for a little bit because you want to maintain pressure and make sure they can't immediately retake a third, but you don't want to try to headbutt. You do not want to go too deep on this because with the Biles, the Queens are getting transfuse energy. If you commit, it's now or never, and I think PartinG just wants to win the game. He's going to go for it, but the transfuses on the spine are massive.
And those Zealots were completely pointless. I mean, these are slow Zealots. There's no Twilight Constant. Now PartinG is transitioning. After he's taking double gas, he's going to wipe in a few more units. He wants to make it look like, hey, I'm still going to try to win the game here.
Yep.
But I think Reynor is going to slowly but steadily pick up on this. Reynor now makes 10 Zerglings. I hope he's aware of the fact that he doesn't have Zergling speed, because you know, the Zealots were underwhelming, but these Lings are going to be very underwhelming as well. That Immortal was exposed, the Sentry.
Oh, get that Sentry out of there. Nice pick up. Does keep it alive for now, but he's got to get home. PartinG just has to run. And I've got to say, right now, that's a lot of Roach Ravager, but no Roach speed, no Zergling speed reinforce. Often you see this army, you say, ooh, heaps more Roaches and Lings can meet up with that. In this case, no way. Reynor cannot go up this ramp. Like, it's very dangerous as he's off creep now. The Biles are a threat, but without the Speedling support, he's got to be very, very careful.
He has a couple of slow Zerglings, making sure that PartinG is not going up to 3 bases in a moment where he's not supposed to. There is that Twilight Console, finally, for PartinG. I think this obviously went really well. PartinG walled himself in, so he's going to have to take out one of these pylons. I think the initial start of the attack went incredibly good for PartinG, but then I felt he lost 5-6 units and he achieved incredibly little with it.
Yep. It's going to, of course, reset things. Lair now finishing up. Ling speed, Evo chamber, all those things coming down to round out Reynor's tech.
Pick as a Zerg, what do you do now on 2 bases?
You go Mutas, 100%.
Sorry?
Mutas or Swarm Hosts, always. Yeah. No, it's going to take a while. Reynor's got to establish his economy on 3 base. So Roach Lane keeps you safe. He's already got a good Ravage account. He's just got to get that 3rd mineral line up. Zerg is such a mineral-focused race, especially if you're a reflexive kind of macro player like Reynor. He needs that mineral line. So he's just adding a few upgrades, and I honestly don't think he's going to rush in the direction of any tech for a while.
I think you're right. I think he's just going to stay on Roaches for quite some time, make a lot of Ravages. I like the putting a Robo Bay here. I mean, that gives us some potential for Disruptors as well. PartinG with a War Prism, a Disruptor against a Zerg that doesn't have Hydras, that doesn't have a Spire. I really wouldn't mind some Disruptors in this case.
Absolutely. You know, I was actually toying mentally with the idea of what if you follow up with like 2 Stargate Phoenix, like really late in this game, just because it's such an awkward, slowed down position. And it can actually work pretty well, just because the Zerg is in such a weird position. But with the Overlord speed, you can see Reynor, he's like so hungry for that scouting. He wants to know what the tech is, and he spots it. The Robotics Bay there, he says, okay, it's going to be Disruptors or Colossi or a mix of both.
I actually think that would have been a sick play, but you're also right that Reynor would have probably scouted it. There is the Infestation Pit as well. What happened to the Hydra then? Did the Hydra then finish up too? Because I saw that he started one. Nope. Okay, so Reynor changed his mind there. Reynor had a Hydra then on the way, but then he cancelled it. And then he went for the Infestation Pit instead, and now we're gonna see a Nidus network as well, so maybe a combination of everything. Eventually Swarmos as well?
Yeah, I think it'll be the Nidus Swarmos for sure. His creep spread's so slow because of how this early game went. He kind of had to cut that from his setup. Ravages and Roaches around. He's got a big drone count. He's built about 20 drones over the last minute. But look at this attack. Blink +1.
Yep.
That's a huge Sentry Stalker timing.
Forward blink.
Oh, gets a Ravager, gets a second one. Very juicy pickoffs.
Yep, and this is very unfortunate for Reynor, because Reynor was thinking about being aggressive with his Roaches on the right top side and maybe a Nidus network in the main base as well. But PartinG is like, no, we're going to fight right here, right now, because I actually kind of like my army against your army. Even though he's going to recall. No, I don't think PartinG is going to completely disengage. Yeah.
Oh,
and I think this is the wrong call. I really think it's the wrong call. I think PartinG should have stuck around. I think he could have done incredibly well there. But the moment you start defending here as a Protoss, you basically put yourself in a position where you're going to have to defend for a very long time.
And here we go, the Screech of the Nidus Worm into the main base. Zealots warping in, there was an Overseer prepared as well. Reynor realizing, of course, that sometimes DTs can deflect that. But now PartinG, recall on cooldown, nothing in the main main base.
Where are
He
the
loses a
Swarmos?
bunch of probes. He is in huge trouble. You don't even need Swarm Host right now. Reynor's like, let's just stay on roaches. I would love to see the Swarm Host coming out, but it looks like Reynor, he's going to just keep popping this in the main. His army's going across to the third. As long as he keeps popping up Nidus Worms in opposite areas, it's going to be very hard for PartinG to defend.
Love the War Prism as a scout here. I agree with you, but I do think Reynor should start building Swarm Host here. I really think that that's going to be perfect against everything that
There we
PartinG
go.
has. PartinG has nothing. Yeah, okay, there you go. 6 Swarm Host. Perfect call by Reynor.
He hears the voice of Rotterdam through the void, and he does end up making the correct decision. And look at that, Nidus in the main, Nidus in the third. This is so difficult for PartinG. Now that Nidus Worm is up, as Reynor, you can just move your army wherever you want. He says, oh, you're going to pull back from the third? Okay, I'll just run in there. Oh, you're going to come to defend it? I can run back and get out, and the Nidus Worm pop out into your main. This is so difficult for PartinG to deal with. I mean, these Stalkers look like they're doing okay right now, but if Reynor just unloads in the main, he's going to obliterate them.
Well, they are doing okay, but the problem is that once this starts, this is what I said like a minute ago, you're going to keep on defending, and that's going to go well against Roaches for a while, because I think PartinG has done a really good job against the Roaches and the Ravages. I'm just worried what happens if he's going to have to go up against 18, 20, 22 Locusts at a time. At that point, I am not sure if he's going to be able to get proper defense anymore.
Oh, he blinks up, does take down that Nidus Worm on the front finally. He's also removed the one in the main base, the Stalker squad there. He's going to blink down. That's what he's got to do. Zone it out. If you can shut these down, you buy yourself a bit of map control. And remember, Stalkers, maybe not the best versus Locusts, but they've got the maneuverability. They can engage and disengage at will. And when those Locusts are on cooldown, that is when the Blink Stalkers shine.
Yep, that was an incredibly good move by PartinG to blink to the low ground, deny that Nidus. There's going to be another Nidus. I would love to see PartinG keep a couple of observers around. But if Reynor puts all of his Swarm Hosts in the Nidus right now, I think this time PartinG will not go home and be like, fine, you want to kill my main, that's okay. I'm going to kill your natural in that case.
And this is great micro from PartinG. He loses a single Stalker, and he's going to just take out these Locusts, going to start baiting these Ravagers in. Great engagements, using the Prism to save units at the last second. Even individual sentries being picked up here. PartinG is not going to be pushed back. He knows the Locusts are on cooldown. It's time for him to force a fight. The Biles actually take out the Observer there. The blink forward. He is just going to blink right on his face, and Reynor needs more Locusts. They're all on cooldown. He's in so much trouble right now.
That is a crazy forward blink, but it's a perfect one because the Locusts are still not ready. They should be ready within seconds from this point, but a lot of these Swarmos went down. PartinG with a beautiful timing here, beautiful display of how to fight and how to not fight. Now he's going to lose a couple of Stalkers there on the north side. These Locusts are doing quite a bit of damage, but I think PartinG still has the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, taking out so many Ravagers there, taking out a lot of the Swarmos, and really just using that mobility to shut down the Locusts. PartinG with an excellent display there. He was not in a fantastic position at some points in that game, but he bounces back and shuts down the Swarm Host Nidus.
The moment when Reynor was like, okay, this is where this game is becoming really fun, because I'm gonna Nidus on the north, I'm gonna Nidus on the south, and it's gonna be Locusts flying in from every angle, and all he's gonna do is defend. That's the moment where PartinG said no. He killed the Nidus on the north side, and he had a couple Stalkers in the main base, blinked to the low ground, and he shot down that Nidus network.
Yep.
And at that point he said like, all right, now it's my turn. Then he attacked, and I think that Reynor obviously made a mistake by using all, like, he had almost 20 Swarmos, I think it was,
Yep.
but he used all of the Locusts at once. PartinG is obviously not crazy, so he runs back, loses one sentry, one Stalker in the process, but the moment all of those Locusts expired, he's like, all right, forward blink, not a forward blink, and he went for it. If that goes on and on, it's going to be bad for PartinG, but PartinG did a phenomenal job there in running away from the first wave. But a little bit of a critical point there for Reynor is that he shouldn't use all of his.
You got to go on a diet, right? You got to use just like a little bit, portion out your Locust meals. You go half the Locusts, then half. We even see sometimes players will do like 1/3 of the Locusts. We'll throw away, then another third 20 seconds later, then another third, and it just keeps this constant problem. Because remember, the moment the Stalkers engage into the Locusts, anyone who's actually faced Locusts knows how much damage they do. Because PartinG has to kind of pull back, that allows the Ravagers to drop the Biles, the Roaches to land some hits. But we saw in between the waves, right? Whenever the Locusts weren't there, it was like blink forward, force field, 6 Ravagers just disappear, and you're like, oh, those are 100 gas each. That is not cheap. Those are way more expensive than anything like Hydra's. And Reynor, once he loses that utility, I mean, he gets pushed back and suddenly PartinG picks the engagements.
Once that attack happened, or once that final fight started, Reynor was actually maxed out. And I know it didn't look like a maxed out Zerg, but that is because he used all of his locusts at once.
Yeah.
And then the moment that you cannot use like 50 of your army supply, you have 70 drones. What do you have left? And a couple of roaches and ravagers, and the overwhelming force of stalkers that are really not good in dealing with locusts, are obviously very good against only 50 or 60 supply of roach ravagers. So definitely a critical mistake there by Reynor, but I think the defense by PartinG was absolutely phenomenal. And the moment he shut down those final Nidus networks, he also knew that, okay, I cannot defend forever. This is my moment. He went for it. If you talk about killer instinct, man, PartinG's got it.
A very, very nice game to tie this series up 1-1. Of course, PartinG, he's been looking a little bit more stressed than he does on his stream today. He's playing very, very well. I feel like he's warming up over these games and getting better and better. For those of you who are wondering, you know, how Reynor might have been able to win that game, I can't help but just think if he did pull the army back from the third, the ability to click on the Nidus, load them in, pop out in the main base is actually so underrated right now. And I think when there was about 9 Stalkers in the main, cleaning up the roaches, cleaning up the Nidus, you reposition your army at that moment as Reynor. I do think things get out of control for PartinG. It is a little risky, because if you lose the Nidus and your army's trapped in the main, that's bad. But I feel like with the ability to just keep popping up new Niduses, it's almost impossible for the Protoss player to trap you in there.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of StarCraft, because I think there were a lot of key moments in that game. Let's not forget how that game started. Reynor lost one of his hatcheries. He started off as a 2-base Zerg, right? And that already throws almost everything we know about very standard traditional PvZ out of the window. At that point, you're playing a weird game. Obviously, you can say that's in favor of PartinG, because most of his games are pretty weird, but I think there were a lot of key moments. Overall, very fun back and forth game. Let's see who will move on to the qualifying match here in the upper bracket of bracket number 3. In the right top side, a beautiful automaton. We haven't seen it that much yet this tournament. It is the main base of the one and only Reynor. Just noticed, Big, we haven't seen a lot of automatons so far.
You know, this map is a little bit of a struggle for the Protoss players. Speaking of our Protoss player here in the red, it is PartinG. Big wide open areas and a gigantic main base, ready for the worm. You know, it is just so many corners to put that Nidus worm in. It takes you a long time to get back up in there. It's, I mean, just look how wide open the natural is. I feel like Reynor is itching to do his Ling Queen Nidus again. I think if there's a map where you're just going to try to YOLO +1 melee Lings and a ton of Queens, this is it.
I do love this map for double Stargate play, though. I think this is a beautiful, beautiful Phoenix map, especially because the main base, you know, where you put your Spore Crawlers, it doesn't really matter. The Phoenixes will always find an angle unless there is like 3 Spores and 2 Queens, but that is an absolute massive investment. And if you take a look at like where normally the fort would be, sometimes it's in front of the main, but a lot of Zerg players hate taking this one, so they actually take the base at 12 o'clock. If you think of the amount of area there is for Phoenixes to fly in and harass mineral lines on this map, I think it's an absolutely phenomenal map for Phoenixes. And I mean, it's so funny because I feel a few weeks ago, every PvZ was full of double Stargate Phoenix, up to the point where in Twitch it is like, oh my god, it's Phoenix again, me. And I was like, oh, come on, guys, like, what's wrong with our little Phoenix play? But now suddenly, this tournament, I haven't really seen that many Phoenixes yet. Yeah,
I think a lot of these players, they did get sick of not getting credit. You know, they all basically, every time they won a game, everyone said, oh, cool, you've been learning from Roddy's stream. Yeah, good on you, buddy. And they said, you know what, it's time for me to reclaim some of my own points for winning these games. I'm going to use some different strats. And
like obviously, I think Niduses are scary if you open Stargate, but I don't think Stargate is necessarily a default loss.
I don't think so. No, Showtime was confident opening with it yesterday, and got in great positions.
And I also think that you cannot form every strategy that you have currently about being afraid of dying to Niduses. Like, Niduses are incredibly powerful, but it's still something you can scout. And as long as you scout it, if you counter it, then suddenly it's not that powerful anymore, because obviously it is pretty damn all-in general. It is going to be another Twilight opening here, though, for PartinG. Now, if these were any other Protoss players, I'd say this could be a Resonating Glaive opening, which I still think has a time and a place in the matchup. But on Automaton, I find it less likely. And with PartinG, I find it much less likely because he clearly loves his Archons and Archon drops and Dark Templars.
I like to see him just identify so well with this. You know, it's my favorite personal build to use on the ladder. It was, what, 6 months of 2016. Everyone did Archon drop every single game, but we haven't seen it as much lately. When we see it, it's usually a meta play. Someone goes for the 4 Archon double Prism drop, and it's like 1 in 10 ZVPs, right? It's really not that common.
Oh, but that's a very fast charge. So maybe this time, like he could do one of those builds that Real did as well, right? Or no, it wasn't Real. Who was the pros that did yesterday with like 1 Immortal in a Prism or 2 Immortals in a Prism? Skilless did it. Skilless against Nurcho.
Well, Rail actually beat Reynor with that earlier today as well. And I asked Reynor, I was like, oh, you didn't see it coming? He's like, oh no, I saw it. I knew it was coming.
It's just hard.
He's like, yeah, it just killed me. And I was like, okay.
I think if it's like build. 1 Immortal and then it's pure Zealot and a Warp Prism, I think the best thing you can do against it is Ling, Bane, and a million Queens. I think Queens in general are a nightmare to deal with. Having a couple Banelings in the mix, it's not even about having like 10 or 12 Banelings. It's about making it so hard for those Zealots to not just A-move. Suddenly we have to control those Zealots as bonus players. And that's where we draw the line. We're like, whoa, hey, I don't make Zealots to pay attention to my micro.
Yeah, Zealots are all about charging towards the first Baneling. When you first go to Zealot training camp, I'm pretty sure they show you the Legacy of the Void cinematic where it's like, oh, we're meant to charge at the Banelings and stab them? That seems like a good idea.
I'm really good at that. It's just like, it's becomes sad when Zealots are standing there in balls of 6 and then a couple Banelings will fall. Wait a minute. But it's not going to be any of those things. It is a little bit weird. PartinG is taking both gases in his natural. Still, I'm building... What? What is this build?
It's been scouted, and he said, you know what? Just a couple of Zealots, that's it. He's going to go for a 4 Zealot drop, potentially warp a few more Zealots in as well with that. Looking for the over-response, and I do like, in a weird game where the Zerg overreacts to Stargate Phoenix, I think it's fantastic. Let's see if he can force that overreaction. If Reynor realizes quickly enough, goes back into droning, gets to 65, 70 drones before the Phoenix do anything, Reynor's probably going to be in a pretty good position because as PartinG, yes, okay, he's got to get the 3rd base up and he's got to try and keep Reynor distracted. If he loses the 3rd, I think he's in big trouble.
But how is he going to lose it? Because Reynor is worried about defending right now, so I highly doubt that Reynor is going to make a million circling, send him to the other side of the map. Yeah, this is actually working out so well for PartinG at this point. It's whoa, Oracles? Okay, I would have preferred Phoenix, but hey, Oracles, he's channeling his inner Has right now. He's like, Has, I've seen those old replays, and I like what you were doing.
Isn't it like Canning has like a 6 Oracle just into normal macro build, I think, as well? I don't know. Definitely, this is not the stuff you see very much out there on the ladder, but I mean, the Oracles are a surprise maneuver. They can come in. The Overseer sees it, though. Reynor sees everything. Reynor knows exactly what he's up against. He just spotted the double Oracle on the way.
No, you're making a Void Ray? Why would you ever make a Void Ray?
It just got scouted, so he's just cancelled it. Yeah.
But did he cancel both Oracles?
Two came out, and he swapped into Void Ray production now.
Void Ray, Spodek, what are you doing, you madman?
Is that the gameplay? Is he going Skytoss off this?
I don't know, Finn.
I don't know what's happening, Ronnie. Explain.
It's one of those moments where I'm just gonna sit and watch. And these Oracles are actually gonna do a little bit of damage. Queens were out of position. Losing an Oracle for only 3 rounds, that's not as good.
And he hasn't seen the Nidus Worm either.
I don't know why he's making Void Rays. I mean, Void Rays are just kind of bad against everything. They're even bad against Roaches, guys, believe it or not. No, I'm kidding. But Roach Queen, I actually don't like him that much.
I mean, I do enjoy seeing the unit because it's novelty. It's rare. Yeah, it's going to be a Skytoss transition off this.
At this point, Reynor should really just not try to Nidus too much, and he should just make some Infestors. Or Hydras, for all I care. But he's actually gonna try, alright.
Charged up Void Ray. I'm having memories of Naniwar in 2013 right now.
Where the sentries at? Where the sentries at, that big?
Actually, Guardian Shield and Force Fields are so important with this. He's got a couple sentries. They're on the 3rd. Not a lot of energy, though.
Okay.
Immortals being added in now in reaction. He's heard the screech of the Nidus Worm. And he knows there's a lot of units barreling down in this 3rd base.
Reynor
a few more sentries warping in as well.
Reynor should really kill these rocks. Against this many Force Fields, he really has killed the rock. I love the shield batteries by PartinG. That's the only way that these Void Rays are going to survive long enough to have a big impact on this battle. Void Rays powered by shield batteries, suddenly they become a pretty respectable unit, and I like what Reynor is doing here.
You kind of almost want your Zealots to be counter-attacking. It's so hard for them to micro in these engagements. You really need the Zerg to overcommit a little bit too deep, and that's when they suddenly can kind of charge in. He's going to look for it here. It's all about the force fields. Biles landing in the middle. A couple of sentries already falling. The Void Ray's heavily wounded. Oh man, no. A Void Ray falls immediately. The force fields catch nothing.
Well, Void Rays do fall very often. But yeah, I mean, they are being healed right now by these shield batteries, but Queens are pushing out quite a bit of damage. The biggest problem is I see no DPS in PartinG's army.
Like the Void Rays aren't being focus fired on those Roaches. The Void Rays, if they focus fire the Roaches, they actually add something, but it's so hard to micro that while you're dodging the corrosive biles.
Yep.
You can't do both at once. The sentries here are out of energy, the Void Rays are low, the shield batteries are gone, the biles continually forcing the Protoss player to disengage. A few more Void Rays coming in, but I mean, maybe he can overpower the Queens. There's still transfuses though. This is such a tough position. It looks like Reynor is starting to batter his way through.
If PartinG would only be able to get a couple of Zealots working on 1 or 2 Queens, then maybe he can pick off all the Queens, but the longer this battle goes, the more transfuse energy there will be available as well. Another Void Ray goes down, and it really just feels like PartinG is not able to stand here and fight. Maybe those shield batteries were a tiny bit too late. There isn't Dark Templar, but now there is a Spore Crawler here as well. That's very smart by Reynor. He somehow squeezed a drone into that Nidus network. Well done. I mean, the Void Rays in the end just didn't have the impact that I think PartinG was hoping for.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what he was hoping for with these Void Rays. Definitely one of these kind of far left to center builds. Very, very out there. Has not managed to hold on. The decisive Queen, Roach Ravager, Nidus Worm finds the chink in the armor. And it looks like PartinG here, he's lost his third base. He doesn't have a new one building. He's in a lot of trouble.
He didn't use Prismatic Alignment once, right, during that fight?
I don't believe so, no. Maybe at the very start and then cancelled it to dodge some biles or
Exactly,
something?
I think that is what happened. I think, oh, one more Void Ray is not gonna go down actually, but it's gonna take quite a bit of damage. I know a lot of people are probably wondering, it's like, why wouldn't you use Prismatic Alignment on the Roaches? Yeah, the damage is sick, but then your Void Rays are slower as well, which means that it's harder to micro them, it's harder to keep him alive, and above all, corrosive biles will hit so hard, you can simply not afford to lose any of them. Overall, a very, very well executed attack by Reynor though.
It's so hard to micro this as PartinG because I remember when you're not dealing with biles, you're landing force fields, you're trying to pull your Zealots back so they don't charge to their death. You're trying to focus fire or hold position the Void Rays so they target the Roaches up front, the armored units, they get the bonus to damage. You'd love to activate Prismatic Alignment in the midst of that, but I mean, we saw he wasn't even able to focus fire the Void Rays. He was too busy dodging the biles, trying to keep the Zealots back. There's just so much to do. There's no way to force the fight to happen suddenly. It's kind of this drawn out, impossible situation where you're trying to manage 4 or 5 different unit types, and PartinG tried as best he could, but he couldn't get the job done.
Mutas are a little bit risky, because even though PartinG doesn't have a good economy, PartinG still has 2 Stargates, by the way.
Yeah.
So he could technically make a couple of Phoenixes and maybe start dealing with this. And he has +1 air weapons, as the Observer is showing us. The thing is, though, Reynor is not all in on his Mutas. His Mutas are going to do a little bit of damage, but he can always stop building Mutas. I think he could technically go Muta Corruptor here as well, and I think that would actually do pretty good against the army of PartinG.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Ooh, I mean, the Void Rays with a few Stalkers, if they've got Phoenix here, it'd be so huge. The Phoenix a little bit late to the party. The meat shield of Void Ray is already falling before they can even engage. And at the same time, the Roach Ravager Queen just zoning out the ground army of the Protoss. PartinG there, realizing this one is starting to slip out of his control. It is, of course, Game 3. The winner is going to continue in this upper bracket. And Reynor looking like he wants that spot in the IEM Katowice World Championship group stage. Can't believe we're still only here in the open qualification bracket. It is just so insane. These Mutas, they're going to go down slowly to those Phoenix, but the Roach Ravager willing to trade here. Reynor's got money in the bank. He's still maxed out throughout the entirety of this, and his biles keep finding the damage.
Yeah, I love the never give up spirit here by PartinG, but I think he knows as well that the writing is on the wall for this one. Reynor is hitting everywhere at once. The Mutas are doing damage, the Roaches, the Ravagers. Somehow, the Queens are still on this side of the map as well. Why not? These Immortals are finally going to fall, and I think with that, PartinG is going to tap out. GG, Reynor will move on and will face another Protoss in this qualifying match in the name of Creator.
Oh, Creator, of course, going through the other side of that upper bracket. And it is good to see, you know, Reynor kind of saying, you know what, ZVP to start off, ZVP to follow that. ZVP, again, just one matchup he's got to be on point with, and he's definitely shown his skills so far, dropping a map in each series, but other than that, looking very decisive.
And he showed us some variety, showed us some very different gameplay as well. You know, hindsight, it's always very easy to analyze battles and think about what would have been the most optical thing to do, or optimal, this was the word I was looking for. But I think if PartinG was able to squeeze a couple Zealots to the north side of that battle, and maybe just get a few Zealots on Queens, maybe the Void Rays could have actually taken out the Queens, because there weren't that many of them.
Absolutely.
And there wasn't that much energy, but once again, it's really hard to make those correct calls in the middle of a big fight. Either way, we're going to head over to a very small break. After that, we'll be back with Smix and Reynor.